The United States Navy wiped out over 120 Iranian vessels without losing a single ship. Not one destroyer damaged, not one carrier threatened, not a single engagement lost. On paper, it looked like total dominance, the kind of overwhelming victory modern militaries are built to deliver. And yet, despite all of that firepower, despite the precision, despite the flawless execution, the Strait of Hormuz remained completely shut down. Thousands of commercial ships sat frozen in place, unable to move, unable to deliver cargo, unable to keep the global economy flowing. Oil tankers drifted in silence, while billions of dollars vanished every single week. This wasn't supposed to happen. When the most powerful navy in human history enters a fight, the outcome is supposed to be decisive, fast, final. But this time, something didn't add up. Because the Navy didn't lose the battle, it solved it. And still, somehow, it failed. That contradiction is where the real story begins. Because the answer isn't about what the Navy did wrong. It's about what the battlefield demanded, and the one tool no one expected to matter anymore. At first glance, everything looked under control. Carrier strike groups dominated the region, projecting power across the water with unmatched precision. Advanced destroyers scanned the horizon, eliminating threats before they could even fully emerge. Iranian naval assets, from submarines to surface combatants, were systematically removed from the equation. Every major piece of hardware that could challenge open water dominance was neutralized. It was the kind of clean, efficient campaign military planners aim for. But beneath that surface-level success, something far more complicated was unfolding. Because while the Navy controlled the ocean in the traditional sense, it didn't control the environment that actually mattered. The Strait of Hormuz wasn't behaving like open ocean warfare. It wasn't a space where large ships could maneuver freely or where long-range weapons could solve every problem. Instead, it became a bottleneck, a congested corridor filled with civilian vessels and unpredictable movement. And in that environment, dominance didn't translate to control. The Navy had eliminated the obvious threats, but the situation didn't stabilize. Instead, it stalled completely. And that's when it became clear that the problem wasn't about destroying the enemy, it was about understanding the battlefield itself. The Strait of Hormuz is often described as a wide and strategic waterway, but that description hides the detail that actually matters. While the full width stretches over 20 miles, the usable shipping corridor is only about 6 miles across. That narrow passage is where every tanker, every cargo ship, every commercial vessel must pass, creating a dense, crowded environment where movement is restricted and visibility is complicated. It's not an open battlefield, it's a compressed, chaotic system. And within that system, Iran didn't rely on traditional naval power. Instead of deploying large, expensive ships that could be tracked and destroyed, they leaned into something completely different. Hundreds, even thousands, of small, fast boats began to fill the space. These weren't designed to win head-on fights. They were designed to overwhelm. Moving at high speeds, blending in with civilian traffic, and approaching from multiple directions at once, they created a constant state of uncertainty. Each individual boat wasn't particularly dangerous on its own, but together they formed a network of threats that was difficult to isolate and even harder to predict. This wasn't about firepower anymore. It was about saturation, confusion, and forcing mistakes. And that shift turned a controlled operation into something far more unpredictable. As the situation escalated, the Navy found itself facing a problem that wasn't immediately obvious, but became impossible to ignore. Every engagement carried a hidden cost that went far beyond the target being destroyed. High-end interceptors designed for advanced threats were being used against small, inexpensive boats. Each missile launched represented millions of dollars spent to eliminate something that cost a fraction of that amount. At first, it didn't seem like a major issue. After all, the targets were being neutralized. But over time, the imbalance started to compound. The more the Navy responded, the more resources it consumed, and the faster its inventory of high-value weapons began to shrink. It wasn't just about money, it was about sustainability. The systems in place were incredibly effective, but they weren't designed for this kind of repeated, low-cost engagement. Guns couldn't keep up with the volume of targets. Aircraft moved too quickly to reliably identify threats in such a crowded environment. Helicopters provided some flexibility, but their range and payload limited their impact. Everything worked, just not at the scale required. And that's when the realization hit. The Navy wasn't being outmatched, it was being outmaneuvered economically. The longer the situation continued, the worse the equation became. And solving that equation required something completely different. Sitting quietly in the background of all this was an aircraft that most decision-makers had already moved past. The A-10 Thunderbolt II had been labeled outdated, a relic of a different era, designed for a type of warfare that many believed no longer existed. Plans were already in motion to phase it out, to replace it with newer, faster, more advanced platforms. On paper, that made sense. Modern warfare prioritized speed, stealth, and precision. The A-10 didn't fit that vision. It was slower, heavier, and built around a philosophy that seemed almost excessive by today's standards. But what made it seem outdated in one context made it uniquely suited for another. Unlike modern jets that rely heavily on sensors and long-range weapons, the A-10 was designed to operate close to the ground, to stay in the fight longer, and to deliver sustained firepower against multiple targets. It wasn't about striking once and leaving. It was about staying present, adapting, and continuing to engage. And in a battlefield defined by chaos, congestion, and constant movement, those traits suddenly became incredibly valuable. The aircraft that had been pushed aside wasn't just useful, it was exactly what the situation required. What made the A-10 effective wasn't just its firepower, but how it applied that firepower within the environment it operated in. Its slower speed, often seen as a disadvantage, became one of its greatest strengths. Instead of rushing through the battlefield, it remained within it, giving pilots the time needed to visually identify targets in a crowded and confusing space. This wasn't a scenario where relying purely on sensors was enough. The presence of civilian vessels meant that every engagement required careful confirmation, something that only became possible with more time on target. The A-10 provided that time. Its ability to loiter allowed it to stay in the area, observe patterns, and respond as situations developed rather than reacting from a distance. And when it engaged, it did so with overwhelming efficiency. Its cannon delivered sustained bursts of fire that could disable multiple targets quickly without the need for expensive munitions. The cost difference alone shifted the entire dynamic of the conflict. What had previously been an unsustainable exchange suddenly became manageable. But beyond the numbers, it changed the pace of the fight. Instead of reacting, the forces using the A-10 could take control of the engagement, shaping it rather than being shaped by it. And that shift began to turn the situation around. As effective as the A-10 was, the real transformation came when it was integrated into a broader system that combined the strengths of multiple forces. This wasn't a single solution replacing another. It was a restructuring of how the fight was approached. The A-10 operated at one level, maintaining presence and handling the bulk of smaller, fast-moving threats. Below it, attack helicopters added another layer, focusing on targets that slipped through or required closer engagement. Meanwhile, naval forces adjusted their role, conserving high-value weapons for threats that truly required them. This layered approach created a balance that hadn't existed before. Each component supported the others, filling gaps and reducing weaknesses. The result was a system that was not only more efficient, but also more adaptable. It could respond to changes in real time without exhausting resources or overcommitting to any single method. And perhaps most importantly, it disrupted the expectations that had shaped the opposing strategy. The tactics that relied on overwhelming a single type of response no longer worked against a multi-layered defense. The battlefield didn't just stabilize, it evolved into something entirely different, something far more difficult to exploit. Even as the situation improved, a new question began to emerge, one that extended beyond the immediate conflict. The A-10 had proven its value in a way that few expected, but its future remained uncertain. Plans to retire it were still in place, driven by long-term strategies focused on modernization and shifting priorities. That raised a critical issue. If an aircraft like the A-10 could make such a significant difference in this kind of environment, what would replace it once it was gone? The answer wasn't immediately clear. New technologies, including drones and advanced systems, offered potential solutions, but none had yet demonstrated the same combination of presence, durability, and cost efficiency. This wasn't just about replacing a piece of equipment, it was about understanding the role it played and whether that role would still exist in future conflicts. Because if this situation proved anything, it's that not every problem can be solved with the most advanced or expensive option available. Sometimes effectiveness comes from simplicity, from matching the tool to the task rather than forcing the task to fit the tool. And as military strategies continue to evolve, that lesson may become more important than ever.